Welcome to Walt's Flicks Picks. This channel looks at classic British-themed movies, so if you enjoy this, please support the content by hitting the subscribe button. This time, we explore the timeless story of Captain Bligh and Fletcher Christian in 1984's The Bounty. It's a tremendous film that put a new spin on events with star power, exotic locations, great music, and an intelligent script. We'll start by looking at earlier Bounty movies and some of their contentious background. Then, we'll explore the 1984 version to see why it's entertaining, deeper, and worth your time. Then, we'll look at familiar faces in the cast and some final historical facts. There's a lot to cover, so do use the chapters on the timeline if you want to jump ahead. Let's get started. In 1789, Fletcher Christian of the Royal Navy led a mutiny against Captain William Bligh, an event that has led to countless books, studies, and, to date, 5 films. The first 2 movies are largely forgotten, a 1916 silent film and a modest Australian travelogue that featured the first screen appearance of Errol Flynn. Then, in 1932, 2 writers named Charles Nordhoff and James Hall published Mutiny on the Bounty, a novel with a fictional narrator that would frame the world's view of Bligh, Christian, and the infamous voyage for decades. The book was a huge success and became the source for 1935's Mutiny on the Bounty, with Charles Laughton and Clark Gable. This film won the Best Picture Oscar and remains entertaining with the powerful clash of wills of its 2 popular stars. In particular, Laughton's venomous portrayal of Bligh became so iconic it even spawned cartoon parodies. Later, the film was remade in lavish color in 1962, this time with Trevor Howard as Bligh and Marlon Brando playing Christian. MGM spared no expense making this spectacle and filmed it on location. But the film was an overall failure, largely due to Brando's stubbornly eccentric performance. While having very different reputations, both films gave basically the same version of events in keeping with the novel. Bligh is the world's greatest naval tyrant, enforcing brutal discipline at whim. Christian is a loyal and reasonable officer, and he's only drawn into mutiny to halt the abuses. It's very clear-cut hero and villain stuff, but, understandably, the novel and the films that it spawned have shaped public understanding of both the history and the men involved. The films became the reality. However, over time, new research started showing that much of the novel's research was flawed, and that's a fascinating story and spin doctoring in itself. Back when Bligh lost his ship and survived, the Navy held a major inquiry that became a sensation in England. At the same time, Christian's rich and powerful family worked to defend Fletcher's reputation by attacking the captain. Fletcher's brother Edward was a prominent lawyer, and he launched a 1790s media campaign with pamphlets that smeared Bligh, accusing him of cruel abuses. Bligh's reputation never really recovered, even for future generations. It influenced the Nordhoff and Hall book, and of course, the films telling the story. But finally, all that started to change. Our telling of the story is based on a 1972 book called Captain Bligh and Mr. Christian by historian Richard Huff. His research dug deeper, and he painted a richer and far more complex version of events. Producers including Dino De Laurentiis snapped up the rights and, wisely, they hired Robert Bolt. The scribe behind Man for All Seasons, Dr. Zhivago, and Lawrence of Arabia was the perfect choice to do the writing. Bolt's narrative is told in flashback, starting with the Navy's inquiry into how Bligh lost his ship. We get Laurence Olivier and Edward Fox as senior admirals asking very tough questions, and Hopkins as Bligh describing events. We discovered that Bligh and Christian were actually friends before the trip, and that the captain requested that Fletcher join him on the expedition. Bligh's orders are to sail all the way to Tahiti for a large stock of breadfruit plants that the English planned to use as food for slaves. Christian, shown as an idle young man of leisure, sees the trip as an adventure and agrees to go along. Hopkins Bligh is playing for very different stakes. Not as wealthy, Bligh hopes the mission will advance his fame and his career in the Navy. What's interesting is that while Bligh is stubbornly ambitious, he is not the one-dimensional dictator as shown in other versions. Bligh wants to keep his crew healthy, and he insists that they eat fruit and exercise by dancing, even if they don't always want to. It's also notable that the real-life Bligh was the least harsh of the Royal Navy's famous Pacific explorers, such as Captain Cook and George Vancouver. Official logs show that he actually flogged less often. As one writer noted, Bligh chastised when others flogged, and he flogged when others hanged sailors. As an example, in the film, Liam Neeson's character is given 12 lashes for a major offense that actually called for the death penalty. It's also important to consider the staggering challenges facing Bligh in real life. The Bounty was a small ship with a crew of only 46 men, including 2 gardeners. The ship did not have Royal Marines to help enforce order and discipline. And finally, while plans called for just a 2-month stay in Tahiti, it actually required almost 6 months to grow and prepare the plants for transport. That's a very long time to maintain control of men in such a tropical paradise. And now back to the film. The first third shows the voyage out, and we meet the officers and crew. We also get the first major conflict, and incredible storm sequences as Bligh stubbornly tries to sail around the Horn of South America so that he can circumnavigate the globe. After wasting 31 days in horrible seas, Bligh finally abandons the attempt. But he also impulsively demotes the experienced officer, played by a young Daniel Day-Lewis, and he makes Christian his second in command.
However, we are still faced with a long, hard voyage. I mean to make good use of every hour of sailing time. And to assist me in this, I'm replacing Mr. Fryer with Mr. Christian, who will now act as executive second in command with the rank of acting second lieutenant. Mr. Fryer, come back here. Mr. Fryer, sir, come back here!
This is an outrage.
Mr. Fryer.
In all my years at sea.
Your years at sea? Good Lord, man. If I'd known your nature, I would not have accepted you as bosun of a river bard.
The movie's psychological tension really ramps up when the ship finally reaches the lush and welcoming paradise of Tahiti. Director Roger Donaldson stages incredible scenes of banquets and mass fertility rites that he sets before a naval crew that has known only duty and discipline for months and no female contact. Donaldson shoots Bligh in very tight close-ups to show him isolated as his crew drink in the pleasures of the island around him. And while Bligh focuses on his mission and stays aloof from temptations, Christian embraces them. He shuns the ship, lives with the chief's daughter, and fathers a child.
3 men jumped ship last night. Churchill was one of them. You don't seem surprised.
Now that it's happened, no, I'm not. I'm not surprised.
I must say I'm no longer surprised myself when I see the example being set by my first officer. Just look at yourself, man. Look at the way you're dressed. Come on. You're no better than one of these natives.
Well, at least I am no worse.
I think your brain has been overheated, sir, and your body overindulged in sexual excess.
I have done no more than any natural man would do.
No. You've done no more than any wild animal would do.
When it's finally time to sail back under naval discipline, the problems seem almost preordained. Making matters worse is the pettiness of Bligh's efforts to reassert control. And when Bligh says he plans to attempt sailing via South America again, things hit the breaking point. This moment in the film really belongs to Mel Gibson as Christian. Without his passions and disloyalty, there probably never would have been a mutiny on the Bounty. He's a man eager to return to Tahiti. He's angry at his former friend, but he's desperate to protect him from the vengeance of the crew.
I didn't even, you sodding bastard! You take your hands off him! Take your hands off him now! Kill him! Get your hands off him! Now!
After the mutiny, Bligh and loyal sailors are placed in a small open boat on the ocean without the aid of charts. The film's final third juxtaposes Bligh's leadership and incredible seamanship, guiding his boat to safety for nearly 6 weeks and escaping terrifying encounters with warriors, while Christian loses control as mutineers search for a new island home. There's lots to like in this revisionist telling of the mutiny. The soundtrack by Vangelis is both lush and full of longing. It's simply gorgeous. The movie looks great too. It's filmed in the green splendor of French Polynesia and uses a fully built replica of the three-masted Bounty. And the performances are good, especially Hopkins making Bligh a three-dimensional character. He's a flawed leader with lots of tics, yet one who overcomes great challenges. Besides Gibson, Olivier, and Fox, the strong cast includes early roles for Liam Neeson, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Bernard Hill. He's better known as King Theoden from Lord of the Rings or Captain Smith from Titanic. I was also impressed by the dignity of New Zealand First Nations actor Wee Kuki Ka as the Tahitian king. He truly is regal. Finally, let's acknowledge the sly officer played by Phil Davis. He's a solid character actor you've seen in productions ranging from Sherlock to Quadrophenia. The history of the Bounty, its peoples, and its mysteries continue to fascinate. The 2004 book, The Bounty, by Carolyn Alexander, is another effort to set the record straight, and it's got a focus on the Christian family efforts to tarnish Bligh. There's so much to explore, but here are some final quick facts to get you started. There's the fate of the HMS Pandora. That's the ship sent to collect the mutineers. It struck a reef and sank, killing some of the prisoners and members of its own crew. Bligh actually led a second voyage to get breadfruit, and he succeeded. But then it turned out slaves refused to eat the food. The whole scheme was finally abandoned. And Bligh became a governor in New South Wales, Australia, and faced a local mutiny when he tried to suppress illegal rum trade. He ended his career as a rear admiral during the Napoleonic Wars. As for Fletcher Christian, you'll have to see the movie to learn his fate, though you'll find some mysteries about him remain to this day. Hi. It's interesting when The Bounty got made that Mel Gibson got top billing over Anthony Hopkins, even though Hopkins had more screen time. That's probably because it was made before Silence of the Lamb made Anthony a bigger star. So thanks again for watching. I do invite you to post your comments about anything to do with the Bounty saga, and of course subscribe, and hopefully you'll come back again soon to Walt's Flicks Picks.